Today Su Zaicheng went to the golf course to play a few shots as usual. Hey, Pete, hurry home and fight the landlord with such a dish. Shiete, Su, I'll hang you sooner or later. The big white man mocked by Su Zaicheng raised his middle finger angrily. Come on. Su Zaicheng pouted. He didn't come here to play golf, but mainly to find people to chat with and play with. For example, this big white man, Pete, is a very interesting guy, and his family is quite rich. However, even if he doesn't mainly come to play golf, Su Zaicheng can still hit a few shots, and his accuracy in hitting a shot no matter how far away makes him quite famous around here. After a few words of boredom with Pete, Su Zaicheng decided to end today's golf course trip with a shot and go for a horse ride at the horse farm. Just as Su Zaicheng was swinging the ball, he saw a figure that was both familiar and unfamiliar. This is an extremely strong, fat-looking white man with a big bald head. He is accompanied by a blonde beauty. They seem to be husband and wife, and they look very affectionate. And to what extent is this white man with a bald head and a strong body? He is more than 2 meters tall. His arms are thicker than Su Zaicheng's thighs, and his waist is estimated to be 2.5 times the size of Su Zaicheng. He is a real big guy, and the blonde beauty is not short, but beside him is a petite doll. Wearing a black suit and a white shirt, with a bulging waist and a cane, he has the power of a big boss spontaneously. There are a group of boys around him, but one is obviously different from the rest. He looks a little thin. He is a white male with extremely sharp eyes. Compared to those restrained boys, he seems very relaxed around the big bald head. Playing golf is almost one shot at a time, and the accuracy is extremely scary. Such an iconic figure with a big bald head. There aren't many individuals at Marvel either. Su Zaicheng recognized who this guy was almost at a glance. Wilson Faith, that is, Kim Bin, who controls more than 60% of gang crimes in New York, and has his minions almost all over the world. As for the blonde beauty beside him, it should be Vanessa, the love of Jin Bing's life. There is also the little guy, who is not easy to identify, but if you add the fact that he is extremely accurate in golf, you should understand who this guy is. Bullseye. Tisk. Kimbin, Vanessa, and Bullseye. Su Zaicheng narrowed his eyes slightly. Unexpectedly, I just remembered this gangster a few days ago, and I saw this guy playing golf today. Little Spider-Man was probably beaten by this guy. Although he is so fat, his fighting ability is extremely powerful, and he especially likes sumo wrestling. Plus, his body is 98% muscular. At present, the little Spider-Man who has not developed yet does not use some high-tech weapons, such as those provided by Tony, might not be able to deal with him. Su Zaicheng didn't stare at Jin Bing all the time. Even if he knew that he was Jin Bin, he just glanced at him and left for the racecourse after hitting a shot. But Bullseye and Jin Bing, after Su Zaicheng left, took a deep look at the ball he hit. He is great. Indeed, can you do that ball just now? Yes, but it's not easy. It can't be done as easily as him. I didn't expect to meet such an extraordinary person every time I came to the golf course. The water in this world is really getting deeper and deeper. Do you think he came for me? Probably not, sir. If he came at you, the ball just now might have hit you on the head. Listening to Bullseye's words, Jin Bing looked deeply. Honey, come and teach me how to play golf. This is my first time here. Come on, golf is going to be played like this. Su Zaicheng didn't know about Bullseye and Jin and considered himself an ultimate master. It was just a free kick that he habitually used an absolute hit just now. He would never have thought that Bullseye and King could analyze so many fancy things from this ball. Definitely, even if you think about it, it won't matter. Maybe he will cooperate with Jin in the future, but now the two are just passersby. Jin will not shoot him, and he will not look for this matter. Not to mention it's still his rest time. Mob boss, leave it to little Spider-Man. After Su Zaicheng finished his lunch, he rode for another hour at the horse farm before returning home. What I have to say is that the horse farm is more fun than the golf course, and horse riding is the romance of men. It would be great if there was a girl who could sit behind me and hug my waist, or sit in front and let me hug her. Wait. Su Zaicheng quickly threw this thought out of his mind. Are you kidding me, woman? Women are here to hold me back. Do women have the luxury of making money? Why give up the chance to make money to date women? Wouldn't it be more comfortable to pick up girls if you have enough time to earn tens of millions more? Su Zaicheng pouted and hailed a taxi to go home. This time I returned not to a villa, but to my hometown in Queens. He's had a week off and should be back to work. Su Zaicheng hasn't been back to his hometown in Queens since the last time he asked the system to lift the search barrier a little bit. Maybe there are already several tasks waiting for me? Su Zaicheng licked his tongue, his eyes turned into 2 copper coins, as if countless rice knives were beckoning to him. 10 minutes later, the taxi stopped. Su Zaicheng returned to her hometown in Queens. Open the door skillfully, just as he expected. After opening the door, you can see a brand new envelope lying on the ground. I'm afraid it was pushed in from under the door. Su Zaicheng chuckled, bent down to pick up the envelope, tore it open, unfolded the letter, and read what was written on it. The content is very simple. I have heard the name of Bounty Hunter for a long time. I hope that Mr. Hunter can come to the Rand Group to talk about it. There are tasks you want here, and the reward will definitely satisfy you. Signed, Ward Meacham. Su Zaicheng narrowed his eyes slightly, and gently tore up the letter paper. Ward Meacham? Perhaps this name is not particularly well known, but the name of the Rand Group is not small. Especially for Su Zaicheng, a time traveler. The Rand Group, with a market value of tens of billions of dollars and hundreds of billions of soft sister coins, is particularly accomplished in medicine. Although the Rand Corporation is nothing compared to Tony's arms technology company, it is a behemoth to civilians. Definitely, Su Zaicheng has now relied on his own ability to earn more than 1 billion rice knives in such a short period of time, so naturally he will not be amazed by the tens of billions of rice knives. There is only one reason why he can remember the Rand Group. That is Danny Rand, the major shareholder who holds 51% of the shares in the Rand Group. The name may be generic, but he has another name, Iron Fist. Iron Fist, Danny Rand. In the Marvel worldview, the gatekeeper of the mysterious city of Kunlun, and the Hand are mortal enemies. And Ward Meacham is his big brother. Su Zaicheng touched his chin. He didn't bother to understand these things in depth. To him, money was the real thing, and everything else was false. The current CEO of the Rand Group should be able to offer a good price, right? But whether there is a good price or not, there is no choice. Because Su Zaicheng searched for a long time, but found that no one seemed to hire him except this envelope. Those bigwigs knew that he knew him, but they were still watching. After all, who knows if you're a smoke bomb from S.H.I.E.L.D.? In this regard, S.H.I.E.L.D. is also quite helpless. No one will believe what they say, even if it is the truth. It will take some time to really achieve the situation where the tasks are rolling in. The envelope had probably been stuffed in the door for a while, so Su Zaicheng felt that it was not too late, and he should go and see what Ward Meacham wanted to do with him. The night is bright and the stars are sparse. Still a familiar night, familiar movements. Su Zaicheng put on a hunter suit that he hadn't seen for a week, and carried the bow of the elements on his back. Even if you go to pick up the mission, you must be fully vigilant and fully armed. After all, who knows if someone uses this name to encircle and kill him? Su Zaicheng took a deep look at the small house behind him, slowly submerged into the shadow, sprinted in the shadow world, and headed for the building of the Rand Corporation. There is a task to be done, and no chance to make money should be wasted. The Rand Corporation is located in Brooklyn, southeast of Manhattan, below Queens. The TV series doesn't seem to say where the Rand Group is located. Anyway, it's in New York, so I'm talking nonsense. Su Zaicheng's leg strength is now astonishing. Sometimes he sneaks into the shadows and gallops, and sometimes jumps on the roof of a private house. The speed is so fast that the naked eye can't catch it. It took almost a minute to reach the Rand Group. At the moment it was late at night, and most of the lights in the Rand Corporation had been turned off, except for a few, including Ward Meacham's office. Su Zaicheng didn't choose to take the stairs, because the stairs of such a big company require the employee's ID card to use, so he sneaked directly into the shadows, whizzing up the wall like a whirlwind. The danger perception did not warn him. It seems that this time is indeed a mission. Ward Meacham's office. Ward Meacham looked at the information in the computer with a sad face. Since Danny Rand returned to the company, he has had constant problems, coupled with the mess of his dead father Harold Meacham. It can be said that he is physically and mentally exhausted. Just a few days ago, Harold actually asked him to find a bounty hunter, saying it was a way to get rid of the Hand. The Hand? What the hell? Are these people crazy? Ward didn't know why his father was as crazy as Danny, but he had lived under his father's control since he was a child, and even now, so he did it anyway. Shaking his head, he picked up the medicine beside him and drank the red wine in one gulp. But just when he was about to continue working, he found a dark shadow suddenly appeared on the chair where the guest in front of him was sitting. Thank you so much. Ward stood up in an instant, but accidentally hit his thigh on the desk, and the severe pain made him back again and again, leaning against the French window behind him. Cold sweat flowed down. Who are you? Security. Security. Hurry up and get out of here, or I'll call the security guard. We have enough reasons to kill you for breaking into the company. Ward covered his feet, fixed his eyes on the black figure sitting there, and shouted in a panic that seemed methodical. Me? Didn't you find me here? Still want to? The person who came was naturally Su Zaicheng. Seeing Ward's flustered behavior, he couldn't help laughing. You still have the guts to find a bounty hunter? Ward's reaction was far worse than Nick Fury and Natasha Romanoff's. But yes, Ward is just an ordinary person with a little money, and this time I came to him. I am afraid it was also the instruction of the person standing behind him. Bounty hunter. Ward finally calmed down and forced himself to stand up. Seeing that Su Zicheng had indeed remained motionless, he breathed a sigh of relief. Hiss. Xie, you are finally here. He thinks the hand is Danny and Harold dreaming, but doesn't think the bounty hunters are fake. Because bounty hunters are extraordinary people in the eyes of many people. No matter how hard it is to accept it, he is really there, and you won't be able to believe it. Tell me about it. Su Zicheng was still sitting in his seat as firmly as Mount Tai. Mission. Call. Quote. Ward glanced at Su Zicheng in fear, let out a breath, rubbed his knees, and said, the task is very simple, not to kill people, but to ask you to fetch an item, sir. Thing? Su Zicheng narrowed his eyes slightly. Continue. According to reliable information from our RAND group, there is a suspected object falling from the sky in New Mexico. I hope you can take that object out, and we will pay 300 million meters. 300 million. When these two words were said, Ward's heart trembled slightly. His stake is not high. The 300 million rice knife is already a considerable part of his shares. If his father Harold hadn't said that the 300 million would be settled by him, he might be cold because of it. New Mexico? Su Zicheng's eyes were deep, and he began to think a little. Now this timeline, something out of the sky in New Mexico? Mjolnir. According to the current plot, no one can pick up the current Mjolnir, and it has been firmly locked by S.H.I.E.L.D. Su Zicheng glanced at Ward unexpectedly. He was completely sure that this task was not what he wanted to release. Because, Ward has no idea what this extraterrestrial object represents. So who asked him to issue this task to himself? Harold Meacham? Or the Hand? The Hand, a ninja organization that is entangled with Daxia Kunlun, has 5 leaders, all of whom have lived for hundreds of years. They are very powerful, especially in some big cities. You may see them today. The roadside beggar is actually a Shira ninja who is not afraid of pain or death, and kills like hemp. Not to mention the 5 fingers of the hand, each with unique skills. A force so terrifying that even Tony can't do anything about it. Tony can deal with big scenes, but he can only catch this kind of force in the dark unless the right medicine is prescribed, like he was born to resist. Kunlun goalkeeper of the annihilating hand, Iron Fist. Thinking slightly in his heart, Su Zicheng remained silent. Others don't know, but he knows some secrets. Harold Meacham, Ward Meacham's father, seemed to have died more than 10 years ago. He had various cancers, and his body was full of cancer cells. He could never survive, but according to Su Zicheng, according to information from the TV series, this guy was actually saved by the hand using the power of the keel stolen from Kunlun. There are 2 conditions to save him. The first one, to make him a dog for the hand, never to be seen by the world, only to stay in a secret penthouse in the General Electric building, firmly controlled by the hand. Second, the RAND group needs to open the door to Madame Gao, one of the 5 fingers of the hand, so that Madame Gao can sell her heroin to all over the world. Ward did know that his dad was alive, and he was the only one outside of the hand who had been able to get into the penthouse of the electric building and meet his dad and come out alive. But he didn't know the second point. So much so that the current RAND Corporation is almost completely infiltrated by the hand, and he doesn't know anything about it. He still thinks that his father Harold just wants to control him, but he doesn't know that the hand actually needs him and needs him to be a positive person. Including this time. Task posted to Su Zicheng. I'm afraid someone else asked him to do it. Either the hand or Harold Meacham. Su Zicheng felt that the possibility of the latter was very high. Harold is a ruthless man. He has been trapped in an apartment for more than 10 years, under the absolute control of the hand, and his every move is restricted. He can't stand it anymore. He'll try anything to get him out of the hand. This time, I am afraid that I got the news about Mjolnir from the hand, and then learned of my own name. I want to use myself to get Mjolnir, and then get rid of the control of the hand. Su Zicheng felt a little sad in his heart. Harold really thought too much. Mjolnir is not something that ordinary people can pick up. I really want to know the expression of this guy when he finds that such a weapon is in front of him but cannot be used. However, these are just his guesses. This mission may be that the hand orders Harold, and then Harold asks Ward to find him, or it may be that Harold avoids the hand and asks Ward to find him. But to put it bluntly, neither possibility has much to do with him. He just needs to complete his task. Silent to a certain extreme. The air seemed to freeze. Su Zicheng finally spoke. I have accepted this task. The other difficulties of this task are not very high. Therefore, 300 million is in the middle range, not high or low salary. The main thing is how to get Mjolnir here. Su Zicheng is not the kind of person who is true, kind and beautiful. It is difficult for Captain America to pick up Mjolnir, let alone him. He didn't think he could pick up Mjolnir. However, there is a way. Su Zicheng has an idea waiting to be verified. It doesn't matter if the mission fails at the worst, and there are no other missions now. Ward breathed a sigh of relief. Although he looked very tough on the surface, he was still very afraid of his father Harold. If the matter could not be completed this time, he would inevitably be punished and whipped. He hated the feeling of being at the mercy of his father. But he couldn't make up his mind to resist. Well, except after taking drugs. Gentlemen, just when Ward was about to say something next, Su Zicheng disappeared into the shadow again and disappeared in place. Now that the mission objective and mission amount have been determined, there is no need to stay here any longer, it's just a waste of time. Mjolnir should have landed in New Mexico, within the United States. It is 4.5 hours drive from New York. If you go directly to the location of Mjolnir, it will take more time, and it is estimated that it will take half a day. Su Zicheng has always wanted to do whatever he wants to do, since he has taken over the task, let's go. Anyway, there are not many missions recently, just this mission of over 100 million. The idea in his mind is still waiting for his verification. This time Su Zicheng prepared a lot of things. If the idea in my heart can't be successful, then this task will be declared a failure, so I can't go in vain, bring more clothes and so on, it doesn't get in the way. I will bring it back when I finish it, and have fun in New Mexico for a while if I don't finish it. After half a day, Su Zicheng came to a small town in New Mexico with a suitcase. The climate here is a typical desert climate, dry and hot, but it has a special flavor. If you open a few small winehouses in this kind of town and blow the sand for a while, it will have that taste. Su Zicheng found a hotel to stay. Naturally, it is impossible for him to live here just because this small town has the flavor of the Western cowboy era. The main reason is the blocked area in the outskirts of the desert. From the moment Mjolnir descended, S.H.I.E.L.D.'s detection system detected a terrifying force from beyond the sky. This is a terrorist force capable of destroying a city or a country. If it is allowed to erupt, the consequences will be disastrous. Moreover, there are no forces in the world comparable to S.H.I.E.L.D. They're probably also eyeing something here. But the setting of Mjolnir is that people who are not worthy of Mjolnir can't take Mjolnir, so no one can move it, so S.H.I.E.L.D. simply built a small base near Mjolnir. The military is involved in it, and the defense is tight, even more than S.H.I.E.L.D. However, this is not a big deal for Su Zicheng. Because his shadow concealment technique has reached LV.3. Although it is impossible to pass through walls, hiding in the shadows of humans and following humans is definitely much more convenient and safer than waiting outside and waiting for the door to open. After all, with the shadow concealment technique of LV.2, if you encounter a shadow that is not connected together, you need to come out again, then run into another shadow, and drill down. It's cumbersome and not very safe. Su Zicheng turned on Hawkeye, and his whole person's perspective was pulled up in an instant, and he could see everything thousands of meters away, including a base in the desert to the southeast. Close Hawkeye. The direction has been confirmed. Without further ado, Su Zicheng put on the hunter suit and headed immediately. There is desert all around the base. Since it is in the desert, there must be no buildings or people. No buildings or people means no shadows, so it doesn't matter when you go. In fact, this is not a big deal. After all, with Su Zicheng's current speed, it is difficult to catch him even with surveillance. The real difficulty is how to get inside the base. The agents in the base eat, drink in the base, and the research on Mjolnir is also going on in an orderly manner. The research equipment in the base are basically completed. The next time the door is opened, there will be dead man in the base. Or the research equipment needs to be replaced. But these two things, I am afraid that it is impossible to happen within a year or so. It seems that you can only force it in. Su Zicheng chuckled lightly. That being said, he didn't want to punch in too abruptly. How troublesome it is to enter it abruptly. Maybe it can even attract Thor's attention. In case an explosive seed is approved by Mjolnir, how can I get Mjolnir, and my mission will be over? It is the most comfortable and efficient to use some small methods to sneak in. Su Zicheng narrowed his eyes slightly, and pressed his right hand on his temple. The spiritual energy gradually swept away around him, and countless people felt like being spied on at this moment, and their hair was all over their bodies. But only for a moment. After all, it was the first time for Su Zicheng to use this trick, so it was inevitable that he made some mistakes. Fortunately, this kind of situation did not appear in the base, otherwise it would definitely arouse the vigilance of those experienced agents. At that time, the vigilance will increase countless levels, and I am afraid it will not be so easy to lurk in. Su Zicheng's spiritual energy slowly diffused in the base. Under his deliberate and careful, these agents, who basically belonged to the category of ordinary people, didn't even notice it at all. So what to do or what to do? At this level, everyone should know what Su Zaichang wants to do. That's right, he just wants to try his mind control. Su Zaichang just wants to control an agent and let him come to the door to greet him in person. Since it's so hard to get in, let them come out and take me in. Su Zaichang still closed his eyes, looking for the target. Since we are looking for a target, we naturally need to find an agent or soldier with a higher official position who can come in and out at will. Otherwise, if you find an ordinary agent, you may not be able to open the door, so what's the use? Even if it can be opened, if you, an ordinary little agent, open the door without an order from your superior, you will either be threatened or want to die. All the idiots in the agent have long since died, and now all the idiots are left behind. If you want to find it, you need to find a high official. Scan the base again. Su Zaichang found a general in military uniform on the top floor of the base, who is currently playing golf in the office board. Obviously, this is the supreme commander in this base. You are the one. Su Zaichang unconsciously revealed a smile. The surge of mental power instantly invaded the mind of this unknown general. The general who was playing golf suddenly became dull, his hands drooped naturally, but soon, he regained his shrewd appearance. But if someone who is familiar with him can tell at a glance, he is different from before. Su Zaichang slowly opened his eyes, put on the hood of the hunter suit, and was ready to leave the hotel at any time. It is not particularly difficult for him to invade the mind of an ordinary person. The difficulty lies in the fact that he needs to have his own thoughts while at the same time mobilizing the controlled person. If it is not for his high mental strength now, he really cannot do it to dual purpose. And the general over there also put the golf aside, tidied up his military uniform, and opened the door to leave. Along the way, the general saw many agents and soldiers. These agents and soldiers will salute or call out when they see the general. The general, on the other hand, upheld the belief that too much talk would lead to loss, and walked towards the back door of his target base without squinting. Open the door. The indifferent voice of general sounded, and the guard in charge of the back door of the base cheered up. Although he didn't know what the general wanted to do, he opened the door immediately. And at this moment, it was as if a gust of wind had blown by. The general looked at the wind and sand outside the door, as if he was looking at the desert scenery. A long time, he withdrew his gaze. Close it. The general turned and returned to the base. No one would know that, in fact, at that moment, a person had quietly entered the shadow of the general. As for who came, it was Su Zaichang. There was a smile on his lips. He controlled the general to walk slowly towards the center of the base, where Mjolnir was, as if he was patrolling. Su Zaichang, on the other hand, was firmly in the shadow of the general, following behind him, not leaving every step, and also walking towards Mjolnir. The smile on Su Zaichang's face grew stronger. Skills really need to complement each other in order to maximize their usefulness. Just like Mind Control LV.3 and Shadow Concealment Technique LV.3. If used alone, it will definitely not achieve this effect, and there will be some flaws, but when combined, it is really a latent secret skill. Controlling the general, approaching Mjolnir. Mjolnir is locked in a box, it's a blockade to put it nicely, but in fact, because Mjolnir can't be taken away, a special layer of bulletproof glass is covered near Mjolnir. In the room where Mjolnir is located, everything is made of this special glass, so Mjolnir can be observed at 360 degrees without any dead angle. There are many instruments around. Several scientists were busy coming and going. The general, controlled by Su Zaichang, pouted. They want to study what kind of energy is contained in Mjolnir, and it is a bit early. After all, the forging core of Mjolnir is the heart of a fixed star. Even if they are dead, those who live on the Earth and have never touched the core of the planet can unravel the mystery. Open. The general came to the glass covering Mjolnir. General. The officer in charge of guarding Mjolnir was slightly taken aback. Open. General repeated again, this time in a very hostile voice. Yes. The officer immediately lowered his head, not daring to look directly at the general, and immediately opened the glass. Taking advantage of this momentary opportunity, Su Zaichang immediately got out of the shadow, reached out and grabbed Mjolnir's hammer handle, and gave a strong force. Damn, I really can't pick it up. Su Zaichang curled his lips, but he was not disappointed, because he didn't think he was a noble person. So, after an instant of determination that you can't afford Mjolnir. Income hunter space. I meditate in my heart. The real feeling of the handle of the Mjolnir hammer in the hand suddenly disappeared. Mjolnir in front of his eyes disappeared. There is a Mjolnir in the hunter space. Sure enough. System, you are King awesome. Su Zaichang's joy was beyond words, and he got into the shadow again. It's a long story, but in fact, All these actions were completed in an instant, and ordinary people's naked eyes are not enough to spot Su Zaicheng. After stuffing Mjolnir into the hunter space, Su Zaicheng immediately controlled the general to leave here. Walk towards the perimeter of the base. Open the door. Su Zaicheng controlled the general very quickly. Even though the base was huge, he still reached the gate after 20 seconds. Immediately order the guards to open the door. Yes. The moment the door opened, Su Zaicheng breathed a sigh of relief, directly cut off the mind control, emerged from the shadow, turned into a breeze, and left the fire coverage of the base with a swish sound. And the general was extremely exhausted because of being controlled by Su Zaicheng for too long. The moment Su Zaicheng left, he rolled his eyes and fell directly to the ground, unconscious. General. At the same time, the officer who had been afraid to raise his head because of the anger of the general finally glanced ahead. It doesn't matter if you don't take aim, once you take a look, something will happen immediately. His breath was suddenly suffocated, and his face quickly turned red. The hammer was stolen. The general has passed out. The two shouts sounded at the same time, and the base instantly became chaotic. The supreme commander in the base suddenly fell into a coma. The most important hammer in the base also disappeared. In an instant, the base that had not been established for a long time became chaotic. Definitely, this chaos is compared to the various agent organizations. If it is more chaotic than others, it is at best a mess. Doctor. Where's the doctor? The general is unconscious. Guard. Guard. The hammer is gone. Listen to the voice in your ear. As the instigator, Su Zaicheng couldn't be happier. It's really exciting to run after pretending. Although it is confusing for the time being, it is a base established by S.H.I.E.L.D. in cooperation with the military. Soon, a few people who were second only to the general quickly arranged things. First, seek medical attention immediately for the unconscious general. Secondly, report the mysterious alien hammer. The sudden disappearance of the extraterrestrial hammer is a mysterious incident, and it is not within the scope of the military for the time being. S.H.I.E.L.D. is better and faster at handling these matters. The same is true for the base this time. It is said that S.H.I.E.L.D. is cooperating with the military, but to put it bluntly, S.H.I.E.L.D. is the main one, and the military is mainly cooperating. But this time it can be said that it is very big. In other words, anything involving extraterrestrials is an absolute secret and an absolute big deal. So no one took it seriously. This time the report comes out. Nick Fury and Natasha Romanoff boarded a plane right away and traveled from New York to their base in New Mexico in half an hour. Tell me what's going on. Nick Fury's face was black. The energy of Mjolnir was detected by S.H.I.E.L.D. when it appeared in this world. The energy contained in it is no less than that of a planet. How can this kind of thing disappear? If it was taken away by the hostile forces, no one knows what they will do with the alien hammer. However, if possible, they will tear up S.H.I.E.L.D. as soon as possible, because S.H.I.E.L.D. is a big hurdle for these underground forces to fulfill their ambitions. Although Nick Fury is not sure how those people stole it, can they use this horrible weapon? But as long as the hammer is not under their supervision but in the hands of others, then it is a hidden danger that must be found and eradicated immediately. Therefore, Nick Fury chose to take the lead this time, and even asked Natasha Romanoff to postpone the mission to wipe out the gang terrorists and go to New Mexico first. It is conceivable how much he attaches importance to this matter. The officer always had the feeling of facing the president of the country when facing Nick Fury. Cold sweat dripped down his forehead. He organized his language and gathered the statements of several people just now to form a process of the incident. The first thing to go wrong should be the general. The general was supposed to be sitting in the office, but today he suddenly appeared at the back door of the base, and didn't do anything. He just took a look at the wind and sand and asked the guards to close the door again. After closing the door, the general went directly to the place where the hammer was. He forced the soldiers to open the shield covering the hammer. At that time, Mjolnir disappeared. The general came to the back door of the base again and ordered the soldiers to close the door. After opening it, I fell into a coma. Until now, the general has not woken up. The order is very clear, the cause of this incident should be the general. Nick Fury and Natasha Romanoff glanced at each other. Take us to the surveillance immediately. The base implements all monitoring measures except the toilet cubicle in the bathroom, so even the general's office is equipped with surveillance cameras. Yes. The sergeant immediately called out the video from the general's office. Nick Fury and Natasha Romanoff stare at the frame. Stop. Natasha Romanoff. Here it is, slow play. In the screen, the general lost his mind at this moment, and the golf club in his hand fell to the ground at this moment. This general is under control. Natasha Romanoff has lived for so many years, and has seen many treacherous methods, and now this situation is basically certain. If there are no accidents, the person who stole the hammer should have controlled the general to open the door twice, to enter and exit the base, including opening the protective cover of the hammer. Nick Fury made up his mind, but still frowned. Because he hadn't figured it out yet, since the general was controlled by someone and the hammer was stolen, how did that guy hide so well that even the surveillance didn't catch him? The hand? Impossible. The group of ninjas can at most reduce their sense of existence, but it is impossible to be invisible in front of the camera. Wait. Nick Fury remembered someone at the same time as Natasha Romanoff. Although that person doesn't seem to have the means to control others, but if there are people in this world who can take away the hammer from the sky without a trace, then he is one of them. The two of them looked at each other and said in unison, "Immediately call up the surveillance video when the hammer disappeared." Although I don't know why they adjusted the video at that time. But the sergeant still nodded obediently, pulled out the video. In the video, the general reprimanded the soldiers in charge of guarding. The soldier immediately lowered his head tremblingly and opened the protective cover. That is, the moment the protective cover is opened, Mjolnir, protected inside by the hood, disappeared. The general also seemed to know that the matter had succeeded. He didn't even call out to the soldier with his head bowed beside him, and left quickly. Now things are obvious. The attitude of this general confirms Nick Fury and Natasha Romanoff's thoughts. He is indeed controlled. Back up for a few seconds and pause here. Nick Fury indicated the monitoring time, ordered. Yes. Back off, pause. Nothing happened. The hammer was still there. Play immediately, then pause immediately. This time the soldier learned his lesson, and without waiting for a second, he directly clicked the play, pause button twice. However, nothing was captured, but the hammer above has disappeared. Nick Fury frowned. Back off, continue. Yes. Then comes the scalp-tingling repetition. After slowing down the footage to maximum magnification, Nick Fury and Natasha Romanoff kept the poor sergeant rewinding, playing, and pausing. Rewind, play, pause. Rewind, play, pause. Rewind, play, pause. The non-commissioned officer has done it countless times, and the concept of time is very vague. He just feels that his spirit is about to collapse, and he is extremely suspicious that Nick Fury and Natasha Romanoff are here to play him. After all, he is not an agent who has been trained since childhood like Natasha Romanoff. I'm just an ordinary soldier who can participate in some secret operations. Why are you doing this to me? With all this rant, Nick Fury decided to let the guy go, and he and Natasha Romanoff went into battle themselves. Nick Fury and Natasha Romanoff are both level 10 agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Naturally, there is no need to say more about endurance and patience. Both of them are gods who have been hiding in the shithole for a while. Press the play button to watch the surveillance video. Even so, the two watched it for 3 hours. Just caught a little bit of cobweb horse trace. Stop. Natasha Romanoff seemed to see something, and said immediately. Nick Fury immediately hit the pause button. Look here. Natasha Romanoff reached out and pointed to the general's shadow. If you don't look carefully, you can't see anything, but both of them are agents. After careful observation several times, they finally saw something. In the shadow of the general, there is a small bulge, gray with silver edges, and the material looks like cloth. This bump might not be taken seriously if viewed alone. But both of them basically knew who stole the hammer. Integrate the protrusion of this cloth with the image in your heart. This should be the brim of the hat. Natasha Romanoff muttered to herself. It really is him. Nick Fury reached out to his temples with both hands and rubbed them, and slowly let out a puff of breath in his heart, suddenly feeling a pain in his head. If Su Zaicheng was there, he would be able to read what was going on in Nick Fury's mind. Black braised eggs. Oh shit Marifak. After a while, Nick Fury shook his head. I didn't expect this bounty hunter, Mr. Su, to have the ability to control people. However, what's the use of stealing the hammer from outside this day? Natasha Romanoff replied without any hesitation. Someone should have given him this task. Can you find out who it is? Nick Fury said. They can't do anything with Su Zaicheng, but it doesn't mean they can't do anything with the person who posted the task. The task of the bounty hunter does not include protecting the person who issued the task. As long as the money reaches the bounty hunter, he has nothing to do with the task issuer. Until then, Nick Fury doesn't mind teaching the man who posted the mission a lesson. By the way, pick up Mjolnir, can. Natasha Romanoff nodded. Some time ago, Su Zaicheng lifted several of his barriers. Even Harold Meacham, who was actually imprisoned by the fake death of the Rand Group, knew where his home was, and the people from S.H.I.E.L.D. naturally knew it too. It's just that there is no task for him to do, so he didn't bother him. As for finding out who posted the mission, it's very simple. Unless they use a very special method to contact, S.H.I.E.L.D. can find out who found the mission posted by Su Zaicheng anyway. Natasha Romanoff, this Mr. Sue is getting more and more mysterious. Nick Fury muttered to himself. The hammer that countless people can't afford, but let him steal it, just because of one mission. Natasha Romanoff nodded approvingly. She actually didn't understand either. With such a powerful strength, casually go to those rich people to rob them and get more money than doing a mission. Even with the ability shown today, it can completely control a super rich man. Isn't the money rolling in? Why do you still have to take tasks everywhere to make money? Don't want to do illegal things? How is this possible? No one knows how many people have been killed. Obviously the laws of this world don't work on him. Say he is greedy for money. There is obviously a better way to make money. Let us say he is not greedy for money, and he likes to haggle over some money, as if giving less will kill you. Su Zaicheng. My mother wants to rob too. If the money counts, I will just rob the whole world. Is it worth trillions or tens of trillions? Hit OAA every minute. In short, Nick Fury's fear of Su Zaicheng went up to a higher level. With such a powerful ability, no matter who it is an extremely terrifying threat. If one person is unhappy, some people will be controlled to blow up the nuclear bomb. The Earth will be destroyed. GG Smecta. Therefore, Nick Fury's plan for the Avengers project in his heart stirred up again. It was just thinking about it before, but now it is necessary to advance the Avengers plan. During this time, they only got Tony, Natasha Romanoff, Hawkeye. It's just that Tony is a little weird. Especially after getting the inheritance given to him by his father Howard, it became even more strange, and he put on a bad face every time. Nick Fury is not particularly concerned about this. Building Avengers is the priority at this stage. Even though Loki hasn't come to steal Tesseract yet, the establishment plan of Avengers has already been put on the agenda, just because of Su Zaicheng. However, before implementing this secret plan, first get back the hammer from beyond the sky. Because of one person, the Avengers plan ahead. But Su Zaicheng, the culprit, was already on his way back to New York. Mission completed. Definitely his home. Su Zaicheng had a smile on his lips all the way. Stealing Mjolnir with the Hunter space this time is really a coincidence. The system is still awesome. Mjolnir can be received in the Hunter space. But the only flaw may be that the file size is not good. The file size of the Hunter space increases with the level of the Hunter. Currently, Su Zaicheng only has a space of 10 × 10 × 10. If it is too small, Mjolnir may not be able to be taken in. But, it's worth mentioning. After Mjolnir was stuffed into the system space by Su Zaicheng, within the range of the system space, he could move Mjolnir at will. After all, the Hunter in the Hunter space is a god. What kind of stinky brother is Mjolnir? Su Zaicheng wants to grind it into powder now. It would be nice if it could hold living things. Put whoever you meet in it. Su Zaicheng shook his head to get rid of the dreamy thoughts in his head. After an hour, back home in Queens, New York, Su Zaicheng lay on the sofa and groaned comfortably. Running back and forth in the wind and dust, and sitting in the car all the time, it is really a bit tiring. Definitely, this tiredness refers to the tiredness of the mind, not the body. Leaning on the sofa, Su Zaicheng fell asleep without knowing it. Sleep till night. The bustling New York has gradually fallen into calm. Su Zaicheng finally woke up leisurely, rubbed his messy hair, and yawned. Still a little confused. Turn on the light next to it. I went to the bathroom to take a shower, and then I felt comfortable. Call. While wiping his hair, Su Zaicheng picked up his phone. He made a call to the contact information Ward Meacham had left for him. Beep, beep, beep. Because it was night, the man was probably asleep, so Su Zaicheng waited for a while. After he was about to hang up, the person on the other end of the phone connected. Hey. His voice was very young, familiar yet unfamiliar, with a hint of sleepiness. As Su Zaicheng expected, he should have just woken up. Su Zaicheng immediately lowered his voice and said hoarsely, "The mission is completed." Mission completed. The person on the other end of the phone was puzzled for a moment. Mr. Bounty Hunter? Sorry. Wait a minute. Hang up the phone temporarily, and I'll get back to you right away. Far away in Meacham's house, Ward Meacham shook his still confused head, hung up the phone with Su Zaicheng, and immediately dialed another contact. He didn't expect Su Zaicheng to complete the task so quickly. Even the person behind him didn't expect it, and Ward stayed in the company all day, so they haven't discussed how to deal with the bounty hunter yet. It made him quite relaxed and nervous when he slept. Beep, 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 the phone connects. Ward, if there's nothing serious, I'll beat you up. The voice of the contact on the other end of the phone was mature and sleepy. Dad. Ward shook his head helplessly, and said, the bounty hunter said that the mission has been completed. What should we do now? So fast. On the other end of the phone, Ward's father, Harold, who was suspended animation, suddenly woke up. He muttered to himself, I didn't expect this bounty hunter to be quite capable. What do you say now? Ward rubbed his forehead and said, better think quickly, he's still waiting for my call. Harold pondered for a while, with an evil arc drawn at the corner of his mouth. Let him put the extraterrestrial object in Curry, the warehouse we rented some time ago, so that no one will find out. Some time ago, he let Ward rent the entire pier, which was handed over to Mrs. Gao of the Hand Society, which is also the place where Mrs. Gao made independence, transported independence, and sold independence. Choosing the location there, Harold's sinister intentions were undoubtedly revealed. Then, Dad, where's the money? Ward said hesitantly, I don't have 300 million. Money? Ha 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 ha. Harold laughed 3 times as if he had heard something ridiculous, and said, Ward, my good son, there are some things you don't need to know, just study hard and listen carefully, understand? Ward seemed to understand something, his heart froze a little, and he really wanted to refute his father, but in the end he nodded in agreement, hung up the phone, sighed, and dialed the call from Su Zaicheng just now. Hello, Mr. Bounty Hunter. Okay. I have already made a decision. Please put the items you got in the warehouse at number 3, East Pier, Manhattan. Even if you hand it over to us, the task will be completed. I will help you send it there, and the commission will be credited to my account within 3 days, otherwise you will bear the consequences. Beep beep. Listening to the blind tone on the phone, Ward shook his head helplessly, and could only continue to lie down and sleep. Although he still has doubts in his heart, Ward is still lucky. Inside the mysterious penthouse of the General Electric building, Harold couldn't sleep anymore. He poured a glass of vodka, stood in front of the window, looked at the silent street below, put his left hand in his pocket, raised his glass with his right, and drank the vodka in one gulp. There was a hint of joking in his eyes, and a smile appeared on the corner of his mouth, with a faint hint of excitement. The blood in the body is slowly boiling. Bounty hunter. The hand. Madame Gao. Hey, I'll be free soon. I can get out in a second. Get out of this damn apartment. Su Zaicheng didn't know what kind of idea Ward was playing, and he didn't bother to know. I'm afraid it was the order given to him by the people behind Ward, right? He pouted, not thinking about it. Since the employer has said that sending the hammer to the warehouse is considered a job completion, then just do it. It's late, but it's nothing to a night owl like Su Zaicheng. Su Zaicheng put on a hunter suit and dived into the shadows again, heading for the warehouse at 3 East Pier in Manhattan. However, it is better to say it is the East Wharf of Manhattan than Hell's Kitchen East Wharf, because it is really not big. Even though it is named after Manhattan East, it is actually a small pier on the east side of Manhattan that is not particularly conspicuous. Su Zaicheng's speed is fast, and it doesn't take long to travel from Queens to Manhattan. However, when he arrived at Manhattan's East Pier, he had a hint of doubt. Su Zaicheng grinned, his hair seemed to be pulled by someone. This is a dangerous perception. Is there any danger? Shaking his head to eliminate the perception of danger, Su Zaicheng lurked on the top of the warehouse at number 1 East Pier in Manhattan, looking down at the entire pier from a commanding height. The pier at night looked a little gloomy, but as far as Su Zaicheng looked, he didn't see anyone. So where does the danger come from? Su Zaicheng leapt to the top of pier number 3 after a few jumps, closed his eyes slightly, and activated his mind control, and his spiritual power gradually enveloped all the warehouses in the East Wharf. Soon, the eyes opened, and Su Zaicheng frowned slightly. Under his perception, all warehouses on Manhattan's East Wharf have been transformed into small factories. Although it is deep now, there are still many people making things, including the number 3 warehouse below him. Moreover, most of these people have faces of Daxia, and almost all of them are blind. In addition, at the exit of each factory, 2 guys with submachine guns, katana, and cross darts in their pockets are assigned. This is the case for number 3 warehouse below, with a total of 2 exits and 4 guards. Are you making unique products? Su Zaicheng muttered to himself. If the calculation is correct, the East Wharf of Manhattan should belong to the Rand Group. What does the Rand Corporation want such a small pier for? Why transform the warehouse into a small factory? Already obvious. This small pier should be an independent manufacturing factory created in New York after the Hand corrupted the Rand Group. Those blind men and katana guards with submachine guns. Oh no, it should be ninjas are the best proof. It was Mrs. Gao's handwriting. This old woman is in charge of the illegal drug manufacturing business. Except for the security guards, her subordinates are all blind, and she uses violence and terror to deter her subordinates. Su Zaicheng pouted. He had probably figured out who was behind Ward Meacham's orders. It couldn't be the Hand anyway. Whether the Hand would be so stupid as to expose to him the pier of making, selling and transporting independence, Mrs. Gao would never be so stupid. Although the hand association is powerful, it doesn't mean that she will be so arrogant as to expose the starting point of her series of industrial chains, because once it is discovered and excavated here, it is very easy to remind people of the Rand Group that rented this pier. At that time, Mrs. Gao's luxury goods business in New York might be uprooted by the superheroes. You know, this world is not just a weak iron fist of Danny Rand, but also Iron Man, Daredevil, S.H.I.E.L.D. Therefore, every step needs to be careful and careful. And the guy let himself bring the hammer here. I'm afraid there are other intentions. A cold light flashed in Su Zicheng's eyes, and a sneer formed at the corner of his mouth. Slowly submerging into the shadows, he directly controlled a handguard and asked him to open the door. Then there was a massacre. Su Zicheng didn't want to bother trying to control these hand ninjas. The ninjas of the hand are different from the agents, they tend to climb towards the mysterious side, and they are actually very difficult to control in terms of spirit, so Su Zicheng just controlled a ninja and let him open the door. But that's enough. Even Su Zicheng, who just completed the first mission, can resist the bazooka, the submachine gun and katana can't break the defense at all, let alone his current physique is as high as 100, plus the LV.4 King Kong is invincible bad body and hunter suit. No matter how powerful these hand ninjas are, they are useless. So, like a tiger entering a herd of sheep, Su Zicheng killed all these people in a few seconds after entering the independent production factory, including the blind people who made independent products, and destroyed all the independent products produced. The knife was slashed on him, but he was fine, but the knife broke. How should I fight? Wipe the blood off your hands. Su Zicheng tossed Mjolnir casually, placed it on the table originally used for independence, and left the pier quietly. Destroying this small factory means that he has messed with Mrs. Gao in the hand. He's not afraid of getting into trouble, but it doesn't mean he wants to be played with by others, and get into trouble with such a big organization out of nowhere. Intentional or unintentional. The sinister intentions of the people behind the scenes were already in front of him. Su Zicheng licked the corner of his mouth, the smell of blood still lingered on the tip of his nose, and a cold light flashed in his eyes. Mission completed. After 3 days, we will see the result naturally. Su Zicheng stood on a high-rise building and took a deep look at the pier. Violence rose in his eyes. Being calculated, although I am not afraid, but this feeling of being calculated is very uncomfortable. Especially when he thought of how arrogant the people behind the scenes felt that he had succeeded in his calculations and looked down on him, he was even more upset. Damn. S.H.I.E.L.D.'s black braised eggs and Black Widow don't dare to bully me. How can this little bastard be so bold? The road is narrow, and he doesn't want to live anymore. Do you think you are awesome? But this hostility was suppressed in the end, and Su Zicheng's eyes glowed with a gloomy light, like a lone wolf hiding in the bushes, slowly sinking into the shadows and disappearing in the original distance. The $300 million has not yet arrived. For the sake of money, I still have to endure the following. After the money arrives in the account, I will settle the account with the person behind the scenes. Definitely, it would be better if he didn't give money. It's true that I like money, but it doesn't mean I have to endure being calculated for money. Su Zicheng sneered, edited a message at will, and sent it toward Meacham. Mission completed. Compared to paying himself a commission, he now wants that guy to have the guts not to give him money. Hello. Dad, the task is completed. Arrange a trip for me immediately. Now? Yes, now. There was a gleam of wisdom in Harold's eyes, and a sneer was drawn at the corner of his mouth. From his understanding, the Hand Association's independent production factory produces a batch of independents every 2 days, and Mrs. Gao will go to inspect on the 3rd day and have people transport the independents to various parts of the world or provide them to New York gangsters on the spot. Take advantage of the present and go to inspect the goods immediately. As for Ward, in Harold's view, he was born to live for him, just a tool man. Don't deserve to know anything. You just need to obey his orders honestly. At the same time, the search of S.H.I.E.L.D. is already in full swing. Presumably Ward Meacham will be found soon. So dignified S.H.I.E.L.D., someone dared to hire bounty hunters to steal their S.H.I.E.L.D. stuff. This is an unforgivable thing. The culprit needs to be sanctioned, so that no one will dare to do it next time, at least Nick Fury thinks so. As for the bounty hunters, he can't be sanctioned for the time being, and he can't even find out the person's information, so how can he be sanctioned? However, Nick Fury had other ideas. Definitely, if this idea wants to be implemented, at least it has to wait until Avengers is established. Right now he doesn't have the strength to carry it out. If possible, Nick Fury would really like to bring Su Zicheng into Avengers, but it turns out that the other party doesn't seem to think highly of S.H.I.E.L.D., so he definitely won't come. Seduce with money. Nick Fury shook his head. According to Su Zicheng's behavior of not stealing money or robbing, there must be some kind of demand for the mission, and simply seducing with money is definitely not enough. Let's honestly prepare for the Avengers plan. Also, it is worth mentioning that Natasha Romanoff is very concerned about finding the task issuer. Except for some places that require special talents and technical talents, she is responsible for almost the whole process. Nick Fury can also read what Natasha Romanoff is thinking. I'm venting. Take it easy. Su Zaicheng shouldn't feel too depressing to them during this time. Natasha Romanoff wasn't having a good time this time around. It just so happened that someone bumped into the gun, so naturally she would not show mercy. Su Zaicheng didn't know what Harold was going to do. Within 3 days of waiting for the money, he returned to the villa area and lived the corrupt life of a capitalist boss. But enjoying too much is tiresome. Su Zaicheng felt very tired. Playing golf, riding horses, watching movies, singing K, drinking, swimming. Boring as hell. Curling his lips, Zaicheng had no choice but to open another movie to watch. Movies to pass the time. While watching a movie, the thoughts in Su Zaicheng's mind have long drifted to nowhere. He thinks very far. Far. Then fell asleep. 3 nights later. Su Zaicheng's expression was cold and unreasonable. Put on the hunter suit and carry the officer of the elements. He glanced at the hanging clock on the wall. Clatter. Dit. Clatter. The 3-day limit has expired. There was a bloodthirsty smile on the corner of Su Zaicheng's mouth, and there seemed to be a flash of scarlet light in his eyes. Put the hood of the hunter suit on. Ding. It was detected that an employer did not transfer the commission into the host account within 3 days, in an attempt to evade. After a systematic search, the name of the person is Harold Meacham. As the first person not to pay commission, host, please use the head of the project to defend your title of Honorable Bounty Hunter. If you fail, the system will not punish the host, but one can be 2, and 1 person dares to touch if nothing happens in the forbidden area, then there will be a second one. I hope the host will know. This person. Kill. None. Forgive me. This person. Kill. None. Forgive me. This person. Kill. None. Forgive me. This prompt is different from usual. The fighting spirit is awe-inspiring and full of murderous intent. Especially the bloody, sha wuxi, repeated 3 times. Just by looking at it, Su Zaicheng could feel a bloody smell rushing towards his face, and his spirit was shaken. As if these were not 3 words, it was an abyssal battlefield where 3 corpses were strewn across the field and saints were bleeding blood. A long time only then did Su Zaicheng slowly come back to his senses. Looking at the person behind the scenes prompted by the system, he sneered. Sure enough, it was Harold Meacham, this old bastard. Slowly close your eyes and immerse yourself in the system. Host. Su Zaicheng physical fitness, 100 hunter level, C. Ability. King Kong indestructible body LV.4, absolute hit LV.3, Hawkeye vs. .3, mind control LV.3, shadow stealth vs. .3, mind reading, danger perception, self-healing. Equipment. Hunter suit, +10, elemental bow, +10, white snake bow, +5, tracking paper crane, ×5. Looking at the 5 tracking paper cranes in the equipment column, the factor becomes light. It finally came in handy. It is a good thing for the system to directly point out that the person behind the scenes is Harold Meacham. First, after all of Su Zaicheng's previous ideas have no evidence, but only rely on speculation, thinking that Harold Meacham may have done it. It's easy to hesitate like this, Harold Meacham. The system behaved like a shot in the arm for Su Zaicheng. Second, it directly solves the possibility of those so-called bosses taking advantage of loopholes. To be honest, Su Zaicheng was quite upset. If Su Zaicheng hadn't watched the TV series, and knew about the existence of the hand, and knew how to analyze it, maybe he would really think that Ward Meacham was the one who released the task. And once he went to do Ward Meacham this time, the person who appeared to be the one who issued the mission to him, then the loophole came out. In the future, will those bosses randomly find someone to issue tasks for themselves, but it's okay if they don't give money? The one who will die will only be the scapegoat who issued the task. It's a huge amounts of bug that the so-called bigwigs will quickly realize if it's not fixed, especially after discovering that other people have used it and it actually works. Fortunately, the system made up for this loophole in time. It will directly point out the names of the people behind the mission and name them. Su Zaicheng doesn't believe it anymore. He is familiar with the plot and the system is named, so he can be fooled. So don't be a bounty hunter, leave the system and go home to farm. A small worry in my heart was erased. Su Zaicheng's mood has improved a lot. Definitely, the hostility has not yet been vented. Sneered, like a big villain. Since the system has named itself Harold Meacham, then I just need to catch the person behind the scenes to do it. As for Ward Meacham, if he meets, Su Zaicheng will also give him an unforgettable memory. After all, this guy is also an accomplice. Su Zicheng took out a tracking paper crane from the system space. He didn't make the paper crane look like a paper crane, it still looks like an origami crane. After all, tracking the paper crane said it was a paper crane, but it still looks like a paper crane. In fact, it is a spirit body, like a ghost. Ordinary people can't see it, unless the mental power is extremely strong. Tracking paper cranes is very simple to use. Extend the spiritual power into the paper crane. Think about the person you are looking for in your heart. Follow your heart. Follow the paper crane, and you will find that person with Su Zicheng's spiritual power. In fact, Su Zicheng could go directly to the penthouse of the General Electric building. But in order to avoid the embarrassment of making an extra trip, it is better to let the paper crane track it. Anyway, it only costs 50,000 yuan to track a paper crane. Now that he is rich and powerful, he doesn't care. Use what you need. According to the method of use. Su Zicheng slowly closed his eyes, placing his spiritual power on the dark paper crane. In an instant, his angle of view suddenly changed to that of a paper crane. But he can only watch, and cannot control the movement of the paper crane. Thinking of Harold Meacham in his heart, the paper crane flew up slowly and headed in a certain direction. The spirit body passed through the wall directly and flew towards Manhattan quickly. In the end, the target of the origami crane flew to the top floor of a General Electric building in Manhattan. There is a luxurious apartment, which can only be entered after passing through many shackles, with fingerprints and palm prints all over the place. After all, this is the place specially arranged for Harold Meacham by the hand. But G is not afraid of these. Go straight through and fly into the apartment. Harold Meacham is still up, drinking vodka and looking at the computer. Occasionally hum a ditty, which seems very comfortable. Su Zicheng's perspective attached to the paper crane printed all the situation of this guy into his eyes. Really a little angry. Damn, this dog thing. The 3-day time limit has passed, and there is no tension at all. Is it true that I don't take myself seriously? A sneer formed at the corner of Su Zicheng's mouth. This guy doesn't have Nick Fury's skills, but he has learned Nick Fury's set of bells and whistles. But it does not matter. What he likes to see the most is the expression of these guys being trampled under their feet when they are self-righteous. Must be cool, right? The mission to track down the paper cranes has been completed. 3-2. The whole body's spiritual body followed the paper crane and turned into a little bit of faint starlight, dissipating in the sky and the earth. Su Zicheng's perspective also turned sharply, returning to his body. Slowly exhaling a foul breath, Su Zicheng hid in the shadow and headed in the direction just now. I have to say that shadow concealment is really the skill he uses the most. The decision to buy this skill and upgrade it to LV.3 was absolutely correct. Harold Meacham, far away in the General Electric building in Manhattan, didn't know the danger was coming. He is still watching the video, leisurely drinking vodka. It can be seen that he is in a good mood. However, this is just the surface. Harold thought of what had happened the night before and found it hard to tell. After Su Zicheng said that the task was completed, he had asked Ward to send him there secretly. Because he wanted to try whether this hammer from an alien had the power of a god, and whether he could ask him to leave the damned hand in the damned Mrs. Gao. After arriving at the place, Ward was shocked by the blood all over the ground and vomited endlessly. After all, he is just an ordinary person with some money, and he has never even seen a corpse a few times. Seeing such a bloody scene and all of a sudden, resisting not fainting already shows that his psychological quality is not bad. But Harold looked familiar, his face remained unchanged in the face of blood, and he was able to comfort Ward. This is a sequela of being resurrected by the hand, definitely, it can also be said to be his nature. Su Zicheng put Mjolnir on the table. This looks a little handsome, and the Miao hammer placed in such an obvious position made Harold excited instantly. Immediately ran up to pick up this weapon, but it's obvious. He doesn't deserve to pick up Mjolnir. Therefore, no matter what he tried, he couldn't move Mjolnir an inch. Including Ward, Harold let him try it too, but he, too, couldn't move Mjolnir an iota. This discovery made Harold very disappointed, but he was even more sure that it was an artifact. Unfortunately, after researching for a long time, he failed to find out 1, 2, 3. Ward had already vomited 3 times because he couldn't stand the smell of blood. But he didn't move at all. Even though his body was covered in blood, he still didn't change his face. After all, in his opinion, other than himself, human life is worthless. So what if these people died? As long as he can achieve his goal, even if he sends Ward out to die, he won't have any hesitation. Just like this time. Why didn't he use his own name to issue tasks to Su Zicheng? It wasn't because he was afraid of being discovered by the hand, he was sure, otherwise, he wouldn't have issued this mission at all. The main reason is that he wants to blame Ward for this misfortune. Because, in the eyes of outsiders, Harold was already dead, and he didn't think the bounty hunter could know that he was still alive, unless he had something to do with the hand, which was obviously impossible. Based on this, he asked Ward to release the mission, and he didn't plan to give money. What he was playing was White Wolf with empty gloves. Even if the bounty hunter knew someone was behind him, so what? He was sure that he was still alive except for the hand and Ward. No one knows. The bounty hunter would never think of him, Harold Meacham. If you want revenge, you will only find Ward Meacham. After studying for a while, Harold chose to leave. This is the Hand Association's factory. Although Mrs. Gao of the Hand Association usually ships goods once every 2 days, the longer he stays in this kind of place, the easier it is for Harold to reveal his ambitions. Although he was a little upset, he returned to the secret apartment immediately. And stayed there until now. Harold knew he could no longer lift the hammer. But it does not mean that this plan is tantamount to failure. Because the Hand had already discovered the factory that had been killed, it was said that Mrs. Gao discovered it when she went to inspect it herself, but it had nothing to do with him, as long as it was discovered by the Hand. Moreover, he also found the news from Ward that the Hand will check again, and they will know who is the person who killed all the subordinates of their factory. Once that time comes, bounty hunters are bound to go up against the Hand. If bounty hunters were really as powerful as they were rumored to be, the Hand might be in a hurry because of it. In particular, Mrs. Gao, who is in charge of New York's independent production and sales, will bear the brunt of the threat and needs to deal with the bounty hunter wholeheartedly. Daxia has a good saying, the snipe and the clam fight for the fisherman's profit, and he, Harold, can take advantage of this. Mrs. Gao was distracted by the opportunity to regain the Rand Corporation, and then went to S.H.I.E.L.D. to surrender, and brought out some old backgrounds of the Hand, thinking that S.H.I.E.L.D. would accept him. Even if the bounty hunter is not as powerful as in the legend, he was killed by the Hand. It is also impossible for him to know his name. At most he will say Ward's name. Ward is a small amulet, because he does not know that it is an independent factory, and the Hand also thinks he does not know, so it is best many people think that Ward's mission just happened to let people put things in Curry, the dock warehouse rented by his company. Although he would think of himself, but at that time, there would be no evidence to speak of his denial, and he would still be able to live steadily. As for whether Ward will die in the duel between the bounty hunter and the Hand, that's not what he considers, just die. In this plan, Ward is originally with the effects of amulets and shields. Death seems unacceptable, but it is inevitable. Because this is Harold's backhand. Whether it is the former or the latter, Harold has everything to gain and no harm to. The worst thing is to maintain the current situation. Definitely, if he had to choose, the former would definitely be better. No matter what, S.H.I.E.L.D. is better than the Hand, right? At that time, maybe he can see the light of day again, instead of staying in this damn apartment for more than 10 years. Drank the vodka in the glass. Harold put the quilt on the table casually, tapped on the table lightly, and sneered at the corner of his mouth. The Hand? Bounty hunter? Terrifying dark forces? The superhero who saves the people. Aren't you being played by me between applause? Harold was proud, very, very proud. He really enjoys the feeling of playing with these strong men in the palm of his hand. Watching them fight, but they are all kept in the dark by their expressions, makes him feel very comfortable. What about the Hand? What about the bounty hunters? So what if there are really supernatural beings in the world? Not being kept in the dark by a little ordinary person like me. Harold looked at his own reflection on the cup, as if he saw the battle between the Hand and the bounty hunter. Blood flowed like a river. A mountain of corpses and a sea of blood. Countless people died because of it. It's all because of me. Because I started a war. Countless innocent people will die because of this, and the blood will be paved into the ocean. Harold laughed frantically, with a look of complacency on his face. It doesn't matter what happens to Ward who is caught in this war. Before, he still had some affection for his son Ward, but now, in his eyes, Ward is just a toolman under his control. If he dies, he will die, and he can change him. Since being resurrected, Harold's already dark heart seemed to have been completely corroded, and he was affected all the time, with perverted thoughts emerging endlessly. But instead of refusing, he wanted to embrace it, voluntarily falling into darkness. He also didn't feel that he would be discovered, so he was extremely arrogant and very proud. The 3-day limit has expired. The head on your neck will fall to the ground as a warning to others. But when he laughed wildly, an indifferent and hostile voice sounded, echoing around. Just like the Mephisto from hell, just listening to it, you can feel the fishy smell rushing towards your face. Harold was like a quacking duck that was strangled by the neck. The laughter stopped abruptly, his face was flushed, he stood up abruptly, and looked around vigilantly. Who? As the behind-the-scenes messenger who released the mission, it's ridiculous not to know me. A sarcastic laugh sounded, which gave Harold a sense of direction and looked towards the window. Sure enough, in front of the lattice window, there stood a man in black clothes. His eyes hidden in the darkness were staring at him. Harold felt cold all over his body in an instant, and took a few steps back again and again, leaning on the cabinet behind him before barely stopping. Swallowing a mouthful of saliva with difficulty. Harold was very smart, and he already knew who was coming the moment he saw him. Bounty hunter. But, how did the bounty hunter know that I asked someone to post the mission? Shouldn't he have gone to Ward? Did Ward give himself away? How did he get in at this moment? Harold's thoughts turned, and he finally settled down. It must be Ward's damn kid who betrayed him. It is absolutely impossible for bounty hunters to cooperate with the Hand. Otherwise, if they want to deal with themselves, it must be handled by the Hand. Besides the Hand, the only person who knows that he is still alive and lives here is Ward. A cold light flashed in Harold's eyes. If you dare to betray yourself, even your son will not let it go. However, we must first find a way to get out of the current dangerous situation. The expression on Harold's face changed instantly, and he said in a confused way, "What are you talking about? Playing stupid?" Su Zicheng sneered, and took out the elemental bow directly from behind, and the elemental arrows condensed instantly. As the first person who dares not to give the commission, I will let you die miserably. There is only one result of daring not to give a commission, and that is death. Su Zicheng understands. If he doesn't handle it perfectly this time, it will definitely cause future troubles. Once the news spreads, the prestige he has just established and the prestige of the strong will fall off a cliff. If there is one, there will be two, if there are two, there will be three, and if there are three, there will be countless, even if Su Zicheng will arrange them one by one to his heart's content. However, driven by interests, as long as there is the slightest chance, there will be people rushing to break into this restricted area. After all, those so-called bosses think they are smart and confident. What they have always done is the job of licking blood. As long as they have the chance, they will never mind pulling a handful of hairs from God's head. That guy can dodge. Why can't I? It's better to take a gamble than hand over so much money. This is the consequence. Therefore, Su Zicheng will not allow this kind of thing to happen, and this head must not be opened. However, it is worth mentioning that Su Zicheng wanted to kill the person in front of him in addition to the above reasons. More because he's upset. Harold was too arrogant. That confident face prompted Su Zicheng to have the desire to put his face under his feet. That's why he didn't kill Harold right away. Poor Harold didn't know what Su Zicheng was up to. At the moment when Su Zicheng pulled the bowstring and the elemental arrows condensed, he felt a burst of energy locking him, which was the suppression from the soul, which instantly made him feel palpitations. I remember now, Harold pretended to be suddenly enlightened, staring at the pressure, hastily said, "It's my son, he told me about the task my son gave you before. He is also a wonderful person, and he can lie without changing his face under such circumstances." If Su Zicheng hadn't watched TV dramas and had a system, maybe he would have been fooled by this guy. Su Zicheng slowly put down the bow and arrow. Seeing this scene, Harold breathed a sigh of relief. While relieving the pressure, he stretched his hands into the cabinet behind him, trying to open the cabinet and take out the pistol inside. This guy is really a white man. However, he hadn't finished mocking in his heart. Su Zicheng raised his bow and arrow again, this time without any mercy or words. He pulled it lightly like playing a guitar, and the ordinary arrows instantly condensed and shot out. Whoosh! A tearing air sound rang out. The speed of this arrow is neither fast nor slow. If it were an ordinary hand ninja, they might just dodge it. Definitely, this does not mean that the hand ninja can block this arrow. The elemental arrows condensed by the elemental bow, even if no elemental damage is attached, are not the ninja of the little hand is enough to contend. Turn the subject back. The average hand ninja is enough to dodge it. But Harold is not a ninja of the hand. The only place where he has a little force is that he has been practicing boxing for more than 10 years in this apartment. He also wanted to try to escape, but it didn't work. In the end, the arrow pierced through his palm fiercely, and nailed his left palm firmly to the wall. The blood splashed like a blood bag exploded, staining the wall red. What? Harold's eyes glared, and he let out a suppressed roar like a beast, his face flushed, and cold sweat poured down like rain in an instant. Opening his right hand, he gently pressed the wound of his left hand nailed to the wall, not daring to move. However, he was Harold after all. In the TV series, in order to hide from the hand, he personally chopped off his fingers with a knife, and cut off like a saw, not instantly. He who has endured for so many years, this pain is still enough to endure. Do you think I'm a fool, Harold? Su Zicheng held the bow of the element, shrugged casually, poured a glass of vodka and drank it down as if at home, frowned slightly, looked at the light yellow vodka in the glass, shaking his head. It doesn't taste very good. Saying that, he put down the cup, raised the bow of the element again, looked at Harold, and smiled coldly. You are just like this glass of vodka, it looks good and smells good. Drink it. No, do not want. Harold's face was extremely pale, he endured the pain in his left hand, immediately waved his right hand, and made a decision, trying to stop Su Zicheng. It's me. I'm the one who issued the task. However, as long as you let me go, I can send 100 million for your life. Well. Knowing how to look at the situation, he is still a smart person. Su Zicheng first nodded appreciatively, letting Harold relax a bit, and then the next sentence, the conversation suddenly changed, picked up the bow of elements again, narrowed his eyes slightly, and sneered. However, this time I'm not here for money, just to see you unhappy. Whoosh, this time Su Zicheng has no further hesitation. Let go of the bowstring, and the arrow shoots out. As if he had eyes, he pierced Harold's right hand and nailed it to the wall. Now, Harold was nailed to the wall, showing the word, big. What? Harold screamed in pain, and habitually wanted to cover his abdomen with his hands, but he was rigidly pinned, and 2 wounds were involved with a slight movement, and the pain was unbearable. This arrow. Left leg. This arrow. Right leg. Harold roared angrily. You're a bastard. Ah. He was completely nailed by Su Zicheng. Left hand, right hand, left leg, right leg. The palms of his hands were pierced, and the thighs of his legs penetrated directly through the leg bones. The pain of the bones being smashed almost made him faint on the spot. Oh no, she has passed out. But in the next second, Su Zicheng walked up to him, grabbed the arrow, and snapped it lightly. Severe pain can make him unconscious, and naturally it can wake him up. It's quite interesting. Su Zicheng picked up the bow of the elements, and casually aimed at Harold. You said. Where should I shoot the next arrow? Intentionally or not, he aimed the arrow at Harold's third leg. Number 623 will let you go. I won't let you go. But Harold seemed to be awakening some strange attribute, smiled indifferently, and muttered to himself with blood on the corner of his mouth. Tisk. Su Zicheng shook his head. Stop howling, it's boring. Harold slowly raised his head and looked directly at Su Zicheng. His face was stained with blood, and with his expression, he looked like a devil from hell. I will kill you. Welcome. Su Zicheng nodded, raised the elemental bow and pointed it at Harold's head. His main purpose of coming this time was to torture Harold. Because this guy is so smug and proud, it really makes him a little uncomfortable. Ever since he became a bounty hunter, Su Zicheng has been paying attention to a happy relationship, not to mention that this guy doesn't give commissions. Zong should be punished for the 2 crimes. However, the novelty of the torment passes quickly, and Su Zicheng is not a pure pervert either. He knows a lot about that perverted method of torture. What kind of person gouges out his eyes, smokes his ears, pours medicine to make him dumb, cuts off his hands and feet, and throws him into a CIED? Ling Kai, inch beheading, and beheading, commonly known as thousands of cuts and 10,000 pieces of corpses. There is also grooming. The grooming mentioned here is not a woman's grooming, but a very cruel punishment. It refers to scalding the prisoner's body with boiling water, and then rubbing the flesh of the person with an iron brush. Grab and comb down until the bones are exposed, and finally die. As a native of Daxia, there are countless horrific punishments in Daxia in ancient times, and there are also innovative. The above 3 loyalty is something that Su Zicheng can think of and do. But just thinking about those punishments made Su Zicheng feel horrified, let alone execute them himself. You are the big brother, and I am the younger brother. Although many people were killed, Su Zicheng felt that if he was allowed to carry out the execution, he might vomit to the point of weakness before he died. The arrows slowly condensed. The arrow reaches to the forehead. Harold only felt that his forehead was locked by an air force. Although the arrow hadn't shot out, it seemed that it was urging the surrounding elements to turn into drills and drill hard into his forehead all the time. Honestly, it hurts. But Harold didn't change his face. Instead, he smiled happily. His eyes were extremely sinister, like a dying beast, emitting a faint light. Kill me. As he said that, he pushed his head forward as much as possible, as if he couldn't wait to die. It was completely different from the desire to survive just now, with a dangerous smile on the corner of his mouth. I forgot. Su Zicheng patted his head lightly as if remembering something. The hand will revive you, right? Harold's pupils shrank suddenly. How does he know? Is he from the hand? No, absolutely not. Then why would he know? Harold was a little panicked, because the reason for his sudden change of attitude was the hand technique. The hand can revive others and use a mysterious power. Harold, who had been dead for 3 days, was rescued in this way. Harold is not afraid of death, because he knows that his opponents will still be useful, so resurrection is inevitable. And after resurrection, you can cooperate with the hand, lurking in the dark to deal a series of blows to this bounty hunter. Under such fearless conditions, he would make such a deadly move. However, who would have thought that this bounty hunter would know the secret that the hand can resurrect people? Harold really panicked, his body was trembling slightly, this time it was not because of pain. Hand resurrection is also conditional. If the bounty hunter took him away, took him to a certain place and killed him, or simply destroyed his body and wiped out all the traces, and he couldn't find a single hair, no matter how fantastic and awesome the hand would be, it would be impossible to revive him. He's not Wolverine, he's not Deadpool, there's no such thing as a broken limb reborn who can live with a headshot. The hand would not look around for him because he was kidnapped, at worst, they would just replace him with another puppet, he was just easier to use, but there are countless rich and terminally ill people in the world, and many people have always been willing to be dogs for the hand. Once he died, at most he would regard the person who killed him as a provocative hand, and would issue a hunting order. But what is the use of this? Everyone is already dead, and it has nothing to do with him if he pursues or not. However, even if he was flustered, Harold was still a fine person after all. He suppressed the panic in the depths of his eyes, making it hard to see. Instead of denying it, he nodded. That's right. The hand is able to resurrect me. Broken limb reborn. Dead man reborn. Even if I have only one head, one hand, or even one finger left, I can still live. And once I am resurrected, it will be yours time to die. Harold stared at Su Zicheng firmly. In order to make his words more convincing, he even became the best actor, smiling as if he was real, very arrogant. Pissed. Su Zicheng laughed wildly. If I hadn't watched TV dramas and learned about the hand, I would have been fooled by you. You said, a single finger can be resurrected. What about a cloud of ash, or a puddle of pus? The hand, can you resurrect you? Zilla. There was a faint sound. The arrow on the bow of elements in Su Zicheng's hand suddenly changed. Different from ordinary arrows and flame arrows, this arrow has an unbearable smell. Not the stench. It's the poison that seems to be enough to corrode some. The smell alone is enough to poison people, making it difficult to treat. Let me go. Harold finally collapsed, he couldn't help it, and kept praying. Please. Let me go. By the way, Rand Corporation. I have money. I have a lot of money. As long as you let me go, the entire Rand group is yours. It's only 300 million, please, let me go. Harold, who usually seems to have everything under control, is ruthless, disregards everything and even abandons his own son, but when he really faces life and death, he is nothing more than a dog begging for his master. When praying for Su Zicheng's mercy, Harold seemed to be really just a middle-aged man, looking extremely decadent and pathetic. It's a pity that Su Zicheng knows what a dirty heart is hidden under his appearance. A hypocrite, that's what he's talking about. On the surface, he is decent and noble, but in fact he is mean and shameless. Although he is so pitiful now, he even wants to hand over the Rand Corporation, but as long as he is given a chance, he will definitely kill Su Zicheng without hesitation. If a real villain is compared with a hypocrite, obviously the former will make Su Zicheng more comfortable. At least the former is true. It's not that the latter is so awesome, Su Zicheng just simply doesn't like to have any interaction with this kind of person. Moreover, Harold's calculations were wrong. If Su Zicheng was really the kind of money-hungry bounty hunter, maybe he would just let him go and kill him after getting the money. It's a pity that he is not, if this world does not exist. Bye-bye, Su Zicheng said calmly without changing his face. The voice fell. Harold's eyes quickly opened angrily. The dark green arrow pierced Harold's head, and the red and white matter slowly flowed down. Then, the arrow slowly disappeared, as if turning into green snakes, swimming quickly on Harold's body. A foul smell gradually spread. Wait until the moment when Harold turns green all over. Directly in front of Su Zicheng, Harold turned into a puddle of extremely foul-smelling green puddles, soaking the surrounding ground. Mission completed. The system will deduct 300 million yuan from the assets of the task publisher as a commission for the task, and transfer it to the host account within 1 minute. Su Zicheng smiled. The system is still powerful sometimes, but this time it didn't come in vain. It relieved my anger and got 300 million. Suddenly, Su Zicheng's telepathy, which had been turned on all the time, had a movement. He sensed a figure approaching the penthouse, a young man, somewhat like Harold. Ward? Su Zicheng was planning to leave immediately, but now he suddenly doesn't want to leave. Sitting on the couch, waiting for poor Ward. Dad. Why are you here? Ward didn't know that he was cheated by his father, so he yelled habitually, but found that Su Zicheng, who was sitting on the sofa, was almost terrified again. He patted his chest and forced himself to calm down. Why am I here? As your father's accomplice. Don't you think it's a little fun to say this? Su Zicheng stood up, looked at Ward playfully, and walked towards him step by step. Wait. Wait. Don't come. Don't come. Su Zicheng didn't take his life. Just broke his hand. However, the pain of breaking his hand was definitely not within the tolerable range for an ordinary person like Ward, and he passed out without any accident. Su Zicheng could only shrug his shoulders and left the penthouse. Now that the matter has been settled, people have been killed, vengeance has been avenged, and money has been obtained, why don't you leave? Are you still staying here to sleep? However, what Su Zicheng didn't know was, it wasn't long before he left. In front of the latticed windows of the penthouse, there was an extra owner quietly. In the silent night, the three of them looked very strange. From the moonlight shining in from the window, one can vaguely see that these are two men and one woman, two middle-aged men and one old man. Two big men in black suits, one black and one white. And standing in the middle is a short old woman with a big summer face, sharp-mouthed monkey cheeks, hunched waist, leaning on crutches, looking a little weak, as if she would fall to the ground and die on the spot with a slight push. But anyone who knows her will not feel that she is really as weak as she appears on the surface. This is one of the 5 fingers of the hand, Madame Gao, who runs her own heroin business in Hell's Kitchen. Sniff, Madame Gao's nose moved slightly, her brows furrowed, she tapped on her crutch lightly, and spoke in a slightly awkward Daxia dialect with a full accent. Turn on the light. The black and white Shuangsha behind her didn't respond, nor did they make any unnecessary movements. Just like two machines that could only perform tasks, they quickly turned on all the lights in the entire apartment. Mrs. Gao leaned on a cane, and quickly came to the puddle of pus and blood exuding a foul smell. She looked at the scene in front of her. Blood, arrows, pus and blood. What's going on here? Mrs. Gao glanced at the black man. Go and try. The black man bowed his head respectfully, 3 steps turned into 2 steps, quickly stepped in front of the pus and blood, stretched out his hand and lightly lit a drop of pus and blood, and wanted to put it on the tip of his nose to smell it. However, just as his fingers came into contact with the pus and blood, he felt as if he had come into contact with sulfuric acid, making a rustling sound of being corroded, and then, a jet of dark green toxin quickly spread towards his entire arm. The unbearable pain that ordinary people can't stand spread out, and the black man took a few steps back, pinching his right arm tightly with his left hand, trying to restrain the spread of the toxin. The sudden change is indeed a bit scary. But Mrs. Gao is Mrs. Gao after all, her expression didn't change at all. Help him, cut it off. Yes. The white man nodded, stepped forward quickly, exchanged glances with the black man, took out an extremely sharp knife from his waist, and slashed at his right hand. In an instant, blood gushed out, and the black man's entire arm fell to the ground. He couldn't help but howl like a beast, and cold sweat dripped down. Mrs. Gao turned a deaf ear, she just watched the pus and blood silently. There was a look of surprise in his eyes. Madame Gao, there are still people alive. On the side, the black man has temporarily bandaged his wound with his own suit. However, the pain of the severed hand and the continuous bleeding, if not treated immediately, he would soon die due to excessive blood loss. But even so, the black man didn't dare to overstep in the slightest, and still stood respectfully beside Mrs. Gao, letting the blood gradually dye the cloth strips torn from the suit, and fell to the ground with a tick-tick. Bring him here. Mrs. Gao didn't care about the life and death of the black people, and sat on the sofa with a limp on crutches. At the same time, the blacks and whites set up Ward, who was unconscious, and faced Mrs. Gao. Wake him up. Mrs. Gao ordered. She has been to the Rand group many times, and she was completely infiltrated by the hand, not just talking about, and what Harold needs to do in the outside world depends on Ward, so she can naturally recognize the man in front of her son of hand servant Harold. Wake up. Wake up is impossible to wake up. Black people don't have hands, but white people do. He slapped Ward hard on the face, and then another series of slaps greeted Ward's face like raindrops. Snapped. 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 Every slap was merciless, and after a few slaps, Ward's face turned red, and he was awakened by the pain. Hiss. Ah. Ward roared in pain. Who are you? You. He suddenly woke up and looked at the lady in front of him in horror. Because he recognized it, this old woman was the one who often appeared in the company before. It seems that you can recognize me. Madame Gao still speaks awkward Daxia dialect even when facing foreigners. Ward looked at Mrs. Gao in front of him in a daze, feeling the severe pain of the broken face and arm, and gasped from time to time. Tell me why you are here. Madame Gao continued. The white man next to him helped to translate, so that Ward could understand what Mrs. Gao meant. I'm here to find my dad. Ward replied tremblingly. The redness and swelling on his face made him feel unbearable pain even if he said a word. Ward? Madame Gao smiled and stared at Ward. So, do you know the warehouse dead man in Hell's Kitchen East Dock? Oh, Tiande rolled his eyes and shook his head violently. I don't know. Do not you know? Mrs. Gao gestured to the white man with her eyes. The white man nodded, pulled out a small knife from his waist, cooperated with the black man, immediately pressed Ward, and slapped his palm on the coffee table. No, do not want. Let me go. Ward seemed to know what was going to happen next. His eyes opened angrily, and he struggled desperately, trying to break away from the shackles of the two. However, even if the black man has a broken arm, after all, he has been trained in palms since he was a child, and Ward feels as if he is not imprisoned by someone, but by stainless steel. Struggling is of no use. Next second, the white man decisively chopped off the little finger of Ward's remaining hand. What? The pain of severed fingers is unbearable. The veins on Ward's forehead popped up, he roared, and he was about to pass out again, but he was woken up again by the white man's slap. A liar will have his tongue cut off. So, Ward, do you want to tell me now? Mrs. Gao looked very amiable, but what she said was creepy. Say. I say. I'll say it. Ward nodded again and again, his face was pale, and he said weakly, it's a bounty hunter. I found the bounty hunter and asked him to put things there. People are killed by bounty hunters. It has nothing to do with me. But, that thing is a hammer, I can't lift it, so I didn't take it away. Such a long time has passed, his severed hand has been completely useless, and there is no possibility of it being reattached. Now the little finger of the other hand has been cut off again. If it happens a few more times, he will really be completely unable to take care of himself up. In the eyes of Ward today, the old woman in front of him is the incarnation of the devil. Madame Gao narrowed her eyes slightly. She just went to inspect not long ago and found the horror in the factory in the Mjolnir on the table. While they couldn't tell what it was, they knew it wouldn't be easy because no one could pick it up. Tell you. I've told you everything. Ward was panting heavily, his lips were extremely pale, and his voice was weak. Let me go. He didn't know that his father Harold was dead, so he had to take all these things on himself. Leave you alone. Mrs. Gao narrowed her eyes into a line, and said with a smile, are you interested in joining the hand? The hand? Ward's pupils shrank, and his whole body went completely limp. There is a reason why Mrs. Gao accepted Ward. Harold is dead, turned into a puddle of pus, and cannot be revived again, so he must change someone to control the Rand group. As Harold's son, Ward is obviously a very good choice. However, although it is doubtful, but as soon as the words came out, they were filled with the meaning of being unable to refuse. And besides that, Mrs. Gao did one more thing. Search the identity and residence of the bounty hunter, and issue a hunting order for the bounty hunter. The independent manufacturing factory was cleaned up. There were a few more arrows in Harold's residence, and all signs indicated that Harold was also killed by a bounty hunter. Madame Gao is not a fool, on the contrary she is very smart. Bounty, why did the hunter kill Harold? Why would Ward send this so-called bounty hunter on this mission? Madame Gao guessed the meaning behind it almost immediately. But guess what you guessed? It would be fine if he just killed someone from her factory. Although Harold showed signs of betraying the hand, he was not expelled from the hand, which meant he was still a member of the hand. Overthrew her entire factory and killed one of her important servants. Mrs. Gao doesn't get angry easily, but this is the current situation. This hunting order must be issued, and it must be issued if it is not issued. Otherwise, they will feel that they are responsible. The next morning, Su Zicheng looked at the 400 million balance and smiled happily. Another task has been completed. It can be unrestrained for several days. Su Zicheng looked at his handsome self in the mirror, smiled narcissistically, put on his school bag, and prepared to go to school for a day. And at the same time, in a small town in New Mexico, 4 people in strange costumes, all holding axes in their hands, are gathering with Thor. Jane on the side looked at the few people in front of her and the enthusiastic Thor with a dazed expression. Oh, never thought I'd see you again, my friends. Thor looked excited and hugged them one by one. The 4 people in front of me are not others. It is the 3 Asgard warriors Vostag, Hogun, Fandral, and Heimdall's sister Sif, who is Thor's best friends in Asgard. The 4 of them are also very excited. It is hard not to be excited when old friends reunite after a long absence. My friends, I have something to ask you. Thor scratched his head, said, my hammer has been blocked in a desert, and I need you to help me get it back together. At this time, Thor has not yet formally metamorphosis, but has developed feelings for Jane, and feels that being an ordinary human is not bad. However, in his heart, he still longed to get back that energy. No problem, Thor, we'll help you. As the only female among the four, Sif nodded heroically. You say yes? Definitely. Necessary. Vostag, Hogan, and Fandral waved their weapons and roared menacingly, scaring away many guests around them, thinking that they were a group of psychopaths. Wait. Seeing that a few of them are really going to attack the base abruptly, Jane immediately stopped and said, they have weapons. There are many, and it is different from the usual military area, where there are other forces involved, and the blockade is very strict, you can't break in. Since Su Zicheng stole the hammer, in order to avoid the news leaking out and causing panic, S.H.I.E.L.D. did not disband the base, but instead built it more like a fortress, so Thor didn't go in and find the hammer last time. However, after hearing her words, the three warriors of Asgard and Sif burst out laughing as if they heard some joke. Even Thor couldn't help but shook his head. I forgot to introduce, Jane, these are my best friends in Asgard. The fattest one is called Vostag. When he was young, Vostag was a strong and powerful Asgard warrior. However, because he liked to eat and drink, he became completely fat. However, Vostag, after getting fat, and still possesses a powerful combat ability, is an outstanding blade fighter, swordsman, rider, archer, outstanding boxer and iron-headed stickmaster. There is also this one, Hogan, who is stronger than ordinary people. His strength is slightly better than that of ordinary Asgardians, and his body tissue is more durable and resilient than that of an ordinary person, resistance, making him more resistant to physical damage, not afraid of so-called firearms at all, and, like Vostag, he is an outstanding hand-to-hand fighter and rider, highly proficient in all Asgardian arms. This is Fandral, a self-proclaimed swordsman and romantic man who can't be restrained. The combination of the three of them is the three Asgard warriors of Asgard. The only lady in the end, called Sif, is the younger sister of Heimdall, the guardian of Bifrost. She is stronger than the three of them, but don't underestimate her. Sif has super powerful hand-to-hand combat skills and extraordinary swordsmanship. Her combat ability ranks among the top 3 among the goddesses in Asgard, second only to Valkyrie. And, like all Asgardians, the bones, skin, and muscles of all 4 of them are denser than that of a single human being, and all belong to a Superman and a Koji. I'm much stronger than I am now. Having said that, Thor looked a little sentimental. From an extremely powerful prince being demoted to an ordinary mortal, this kind of stimulation didn't make him lose his mind, it was because of his strong mental ability. Seeing that Jane seemed shocked by his introduction, Thor patted her on the shoulder. Jane, don't go this time, we'll be back soon. Saying so, he greeted the 3 warriors of Asgard and the goddess Sif to immediately go to the base blocked by S.H.I.E.L.D. Looking at the backs of the 5 people, Jane sighed with complicated expressions. Except for Thor, an ordinary person, Vostag, Hogan, Fandral, and Sif rushed directly to the S.H.I.E.L.D. base. The 4 Asgard warriors all wear armor and carry various weapons and shields. It looked very strange. Immediately attracted the attention of the gatekeeper agent and reported to Nick Fury. Nick Fury glanced at the monitor. Under the wind and sand, there were indeed 4 guys rushing towards here at an inhuman speed. He frowned slightly. Stop them, if you continue to move forward, kill them all. Yes. Nick Fury's orders were quickly carried out. A few agents in suits with bulging waists stepped forward, looked at the 4 people, and shouted, "Stop immediately. Otherwise, we will start firing." However, their voices are completely useless. Which of the 4 warriors of Asgard hadn't been a cub who had lived for thousands of years and had gone through countless wars, so it was impossible for them to be threatened by these young cubs who seemed to them to be very young. Seeing them approaching, several agents looked at each other, and immediately took out the firearms from their waists, and fired a few shots without any hesitation. The pistol bullets hit the armor of the 4 soldiers, and they fell to the ground in a bang, without causing any harm to them at all. Vostager laughed out loud, but his fat-looking body was extremely agile. He leapt several meters, and easily knocked these Tedans down without using a weapon or a few punches. Definitely, this is the result of his keeping his hand, not using all his strength. Otherwise, these agents who belong to the category of ordinary people may have their brains splashed and blood spilled on the spot in an instant. Watching several Vanguard agents being knocked out, Nick Fury's already dark face became even darker. Hit them with heavy weapons. Don't show any mercy. Don't let them enter the base. Next, there is the roar of war in the true sense. Pistols, submachine guns, rifles, rocket launchers, machine guns. The sounds of various weapons emerge endlessly. However, the 4 Asgard fighters did not dodge at all in the face of such a large firepower, and only raised their shields to resist the bazooka, and a massacre ensued. Leaping tens of meters, knocking people out with a punch, and hitting them directly with a rifle and submachine gun is painless. From the moment the battle started, the sound of various weapons never stopped, but these 4 people were not harmed at all. With such a huge amount of strength gap, the agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. were quickly defeated. Looking at the 4 people who showed their might in the monitoring, Nick Fury narrowed his eyes. I'm going out for a while. Phil Coulson next to him immediately said, if you go down now, you will. I have my own measure. Nick Fury cut him off. He definitely knows what Phil Coulson has to say. But as a top agent, he could see that these 4 people did not have any serious malice, because none of the agents below died, at most they were injured and passed out in a coma. I'm afraid there is something wrong. Nick Fury would love to talk to them. Definitely, this is for the sake of their strength. In this world, only strength has the right to speak. Nick Fury stepped out of S.H.I.E.L.D. alone. The 4 Asgard fighters also completely dealt with all the agents, standing in front of Nick Fury without blushing or panting. Are these the best warriors among mortals? Too weak. Without being beaten, they are completely different from those guys from the Titan family, and they are not of the same level. Just then, Thor came. Nick Fury froze slightly, because he recognized this guy, the psycho who called himself Thor not long ago and wanted to get the hammer back. Nick Fury put his hands behind his back and said, 5, suddenly attacked our base. I'm afraid there is something wrong. I want my hammer back. Thor stares hard at Nick Fury. Standing behind him are his 4 best friends. Even though he is only a mortal at present, he is very confident. Hammer? Nick Fury pretended to be puzzled. That's right. We're here to help Thor get his hammer back. That is the weapon of our Prince Thor, return it to him immediately. Vostag swung his axe and said, sure enough, it was for the hammer. Could it be that this hammer really belongs to the man in front of him who calls himself Thor? Nick Fury thought for a while, and suddenly thought of a good way to get the best of both worlds. Aren't you looking for a hammer? Okay, then I'll let you find it. There was a smile on the corner of his mouth. If you came a few days ago, maybe the hammer could be returned to you, but now, I'm afraid it won't work. No? That's my hammer. Thor, who thought he could get back his power immediately, couldn't help it instantly, roared extremely violently, and almost went forward to beat Nick Fury violently, but was stopped by SIF. Definitely not meant to be. Nick Fury spread his hands, because the hammer has been stolen. What? There's no way any of you could move my hammer. Thor said incredulously, how could it be stolen? That's the truth. If you don't believe me, you can search the bases at will. A smile flashed across Nick Fury's eyes, and he opened his hands, casually. However, I can provide you with information about the person who stole the hammer. Who is it? Nick Fury has already made such a gesture. Thor is just a fool, not a fool, and immediately understood that Mjolnir might not be in the base behind him, so he calmed down and asked. Come with me, and I'll tell you who that man is. Nick Fury waved his hand and smiled secretly. He did it on purpose. Misfortune was diverted to the east, and the bad luck that originally belonged to him was transferred to others. The 4 guys in front of me are not good at first glance. In the surveillance just now, these 4 people showed the stomach terror and Superman-like strength. Each of them is a roll of 1 against 100, especially the armor on them can block bullets. Blocking guns is out of the question. It would be best if the bounty hunter could be defeated. No matter how bad it is, 4-on-1 can still match a pair, and extinguish his arrogance, right? He just wants to give the bounty hunter a hard time, and warn him from the side, there are still many people in this world who can cure you, it's better to be quiet. Take the task and weigh yourself in the future. In case something wrong happens again, what should I do with the existence that should be provoked? Wait, no cheat? How could I cheat people? Black Braised Egg shook his head, he was the one who did this, and I just passed his information on to other people. How can this be called cheating? Unprepared, Nick Fury brought the 4 Asgard fighters and Thor to the base, and took out a piece of A4 paper with Su Zicheng's name and address written on it. That's all the information we have so far. Thor took a look, and frowned slightly. That's all. No way, the other party is a computer expert. Nick Fury shrugged. Forget it, that's enough. Thor shook his head, folded the A4 paper and stuffed it into his pocket, about to leave with 4 people. Wait. Nick Fury stopped them and said kindly, be careful, that's a ruthless character. Cruel character. The 3 brave warriors of Asgard immediately laughed. What kind of ruthless character do you think? Even SIF couldn't help but shook his head. The 5 left without looking back. Phil Coulson, who had been watching all this, asked at this moment. Let them go like this, are you okay? He is also one of the people who has seen Su Zicheng's awesomeness. Fine. Nick Fury looked at the 5 people's backs and laughed lightly. To cheat people, if the rain and dew are all wet, you have to cheat on both sides. On that piece of paper, there is no record about Su Zaicheng ability, only the name and address. What I want is for them to call the door directly. Even if Su Zaicheng wins, if asked later, he can still say that these people used force to force him to surrender. He also kindly did not tell them about Su Zaicheng's ability. Both groups are dangerous characters in Nick Fury's view. If both sides can suffer from this battle, S.H.I.E.L.D. will be the biggest culprit. Eliminate 2 waves of potential dangerous elements at once. That's right, in Nick Fury's eyes, as long as they are not used by him and have abilities, they are potential dangerous elements. If they are ordinary people, it's fine, but Su Zaicheng and these guys in strange clothes are obviously threatening to it was bigger, so he had to care so much. Su Zaicheng had no idea that Nick Fury was choreographing himself again. If you know, maybe you have to call S.H.I.E.L.D. on the spot to let this black stewed egg give yourself an explanation. Is it really uncomfortable if you don't make trouble? Definitely, this premise is known. Su Zaicheng is still teaching at school. I have to say that it is very fresh to attend class once in a while, just like a common idea of contemporary students with stinky smells. They think about having a vacation when they are in class, and they want to go to class again after a long vacation. After all, at home alone, playing games all day will not feel fulfilling, so I just want to go to school to play with my friends. Su Zaicheng is also thinking about it now. The main purpose of coming to school is not to study, but to communicate with classmates. Peter, how are things going with you and MJ? At noon, Su Zaicheng walked up to Peter and poked him with his arm. Nothing special. Speaking of this incident, Peter felt very discouraged. Since the last time MJ cared about him, the relationship between the two has not made much progress and remains the same. Poor fellow, look at Ned. Su Zaicheng motioned Peter to take a look at Ned, who was on the other side of the classroom. Although Ned is a little black fat guy and a dead house, he is still very high in emotional intelligence, so girls who don't care much about appearance can chat with him very well. No, recently Ned hooked up with a pretty little girl out of nowhere. Although in Su Zaicheng's opinion, it's a bit hot on the eyes. Because the little girl is only 1.6 meters, with small arms and legs. Compared with Ned, she is simply a realistic version of a Beauty and Beast. The Beast is not a handsome lion, but a wild boar in heat. But that didn't stop Peter from being sour. The essence of man is lemons, everywhere. What's so interesting? Yin's family is gone. Peter shook his head with duplicity, and stood up. I'm hungry, shall we go to the cafeteria together, Zaicheng? No, 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 Su Zaicheng shook his head. After so long, he still can't forget the smell in the cafeteria. I'll go to the fast food restaurant outside to buy some food later. There are really not many delicacies in Midi, except for fast food, that is, the famous hamburger and fries. There is almost nothing to talk about. This makes Su Zaicheng, who has lived in a food-rich country in his previous life, often recall his favorite dishes. Sweet and sour pork ribs, mushroom hot and sour soup, cold jellyfish shreds, braised pork knuckles. Su Zaicheng shook his head, forcing himself not to think about those things anymore. Because after thinking about it for a long time, fast food is really a pity that it is tasteless to eat, and it is okay to eat occasionally, but he really can't bear to eat it all day. However, one thing to say, fast food is better than canteens. On the way out of school to buy fast food, people come and go. Su Zaicheng was thinking. Do you want to improve the quality of your life, such as finding a chef from a gourmet country, Cantonese cuisine today, Sichuan cuisine tomorrow, roast duck the day after tomorrow, hot pot the day after tomorrow, and the dishes are not the same every day? After all, there is enough money now, and Su Zaicheng has no requirements for women, so he should be more flirtatious. Sudden. Walking on the street. A feeling of palpitation welled up in his heart, and Su Zaicheng gasped, feeling that his head was about to explode in pain, and his scalp seemed to be scraped off abruptly. I rely on. The sudden pain caught Su Zaicheng a little off guard. He hadn't felt such pain for quite some time. He hadn't suffered any injuries since he got the hunter system. Every enemy he encountered couldn't break his defense, just like scratching an itch. Now this is coming suddenly. It is a bit exciting to be true. What's the meaning? Dangerous perception. Su Zaicheng gritted his teeth, endured the pain, and looked around randomly. Curse. Old F***KU. Turn off danger perception. Thoughts fell. The pain finally went away. Su Zaicheng rubbed his temples and breathed a sigh of relief. Damn, he could really be killed by this dangerous perception. I punched and hated kicking Nick Fury. If I really died under my own perception, it would be really ridiculous. But, relief is only about the pain. Su Zaicheng's eyes were still surrounded by vigilance. It hurts so much, as if it hurts into the soul. What is the concept of perception? You must know that even if it is hatred, it is probably a feeling like a breeze, not to mention guns and so on. It seems like there is no such thing. If the danger perceived by the danger perception is divided into levels, firearms are level 1, and abomination is level 2, then the danger perception just now is at least equivalent to level 100. Yes, at least. The corners of Su Zicheng's mouth twitched. Could it be some cosmic god? Damn it. I've been wreaking havoc on Earth all this time, and I haven't done anything wrong. How could I be targeted by this kind of cosmic god? Could it be Odin? Because he stole his son's hammer? No, in this timeline, Odin should be in a coma. How could he keep an eye on himself? Su Zicheng was frowning. A boss at this level almost killed him just from the perception of danger. If he really wanted to kill himself, wouldn't he be a puff? While killing himself, he would destroy the Earth, by the way. Oh no, not if. Because the perception of danger can only perceive the danger to him. Once the perception of danger appears, it means that he intends to do something that is dangerous to him. Lose your mother. Su Zicheng really couldn't figure out what god he had offended. It's impossible for Odin, is that Ancient One? Dormammu? Even the Tenjin group? It's all extremely impossible. I don't know any of them. How did I offend them? Or was it just a whim? With luck in his heart, Su Zicheng opened up the dangerous perception. However, the next moment, severe pain made him close it again. That's right, it's definitely coming for yourself. Otherwise, the perception of danger should be only for a moment. Su Zicheng broke out in a cold sweat, trying to make himself walk more rhythmically, so as not to let people see the clues. However, his wandering eyes revealed the thoughts in his heart. Big brother. Suddenly, a crisp cry sounded. Su Zicheng at the moment maintains a state of extreme vigilance. The slightest sign of trouble can cause him a great reaction. Su Zicheng was startled by the sudden cry as if it exploded in his ears, and he jumped 3 feet high, almost dying on the spot. When people pay great attention to one thing, the sudden appearance of some unexpected sounds and objects is enough to scare them into a cold sweat. Su Zicheng is like this. However, he was terribly frightened and recovered quickly. Su Zicheng immediately looked towards the source of the sound. This is a little loli about 1.6 meters tall, wearing a gothic dress. She is extremely cute in pink and jade carvings. Her skin is as fair as jade, her long and curly black hair, and her small apricot eyes are shining brightly. The radiant, pink cheeks reveal a hint of shy cuteness. The upturned Chong nose swears her pride. The tender chin is plump and rosy, glistening under the sunlight, making people wish to kiss her. The most important thing is that the little loli has an Asian face and a lot of Japanese style, which is very in line with Su Zicheng's aesthetics. The frightened little heart was instantly soothed. Definitely, this is not to say that there are no beauties in foreign countries, but that Su Zicheng has no interest in foreign beauties. After all, he has lived in a country with great food since he was a child. Except for the few beautiful stars and the familiar superheroes, the rest of the foreigners are face blind, basically relying on hair color and skin color to distinguish. Whoa, the blonde is nice, whoa, the brunette is nice, whoa, the dark-skinned hottie is nice too. That's about it. In this atmosphere, Su Zicheng was a little surprised when suddenly an Asian-faced, super cute little loli appeared. Little sister, what's the matter? Su Zicheng asked gently. This is the first time he has been so gentle since he came to this world. However, that's all, because now is not the time to flirt with little loli, and there is a big guy staring at me. Who knows when I will suddenly do this to myself? The destruction of humanity and the destruction of soul, maybe in an instant disappeared. Shouldn't it scare her to death? I'm so hungry. The little loli stared at Su Zicheng, her big eyes bent into crescents, and there seemed to be a drop of saliva dripping from her mouth, and she said something creepy. You look delicious. I see through. Su Zicheng took countless steps back in an instant. Just feel the scalp tingling. I look delicious. What the hell? His mind-reading skills didn't work, which means that this little loli is speaking her truth. Him. Do you really want to eat me? I'm so hungry, I'm never full. The little loli put her hands on her hips. She was clearly a little loli's body, but it gave people the feeling that she was an adult. In this place, you are the most delicious. She looked at Su Zicheng with exactly the same gaze as when Su Zicheng was thinking about delicious food just now, and she even licked her tongue, looking extremely eager. Su Zicheng swallowed hard. At the moment, the little Lolita suddenly made a gurgling sound from her little stomach, and the appearance of that little adult disappeared without a trace in an instant. Squatting on the ground to cover her little belly in a grieved way, her innocent little face, there was a bit of tangled color on his face, and he looked really hungry. However, combined with what little loli said just now, Su Zicheng couldn't help thinking, is this entanglement being entangled in whether to directly force myself? Helplessly smiled. I am really too cautious, a child. What can I do to myself? Are you really hungry? Su Zaicheng walked up to the little Lolita, squatted down as well, pinched the little Lolita's baby fat, and said softly, are you really hungry? Okay. Little Lolita nodded, her stomach growled again, her hungry facial features were already huddled together, and the wrinkled ones looked very cute. Well, let me treat you to something. Su Zicheng patted his chest and said very grandly, although he said that there might still be a big boss staring at him now, so he needs to be vigilant and vigilant again. But he actually understands that at that level of terror, even if he is vigilant to the level of obsessive-compulsive disorder, it is useless. After all, someone can kill you with one breath. After understanding this, Su Zaicheng felt relieved. Although it is hard to say that this feeling of life being in the hands of others is true, he feels a little self-defeating now. Anyway, you can kill me at any time, so why am I so vigilant? It's a day to be happy, and a day to be vigilant. It's okay to stop struggling. Su Zaicheng pouted. The guy staring at him had better kill him quickly. Otherwise, when he grows up in the future and knows who this guy is, they will be the first to do it. It is good. As soon as the little Loli heard about the food, her big eyes shone like wolves, making Su Zaicheng tremble, wondering if this little guy would eat through the earth. Shaking his head, he threw out the strange thoughts. Su Zaicheng patted his chest confidently. Go. There is a fast food restaurant ahead, eat as you like. He still doesn't believe it, this little Loli can eat herself up. However, it turned out that his idea was wrong. Half an hour later, Su Zaicheng looked at the fast food wrappers that had piled up into a hill in front of him, and the little Loli who was still eating hazelnuts, showing no sign of fullness at all. He was so dumbfounded that he almost didn't feel stupid. There were many more people watching, and they were no less surprised than Su Zaicheng. That is to say, this fast food restaurant is located in a very prosperous area of Queens. Many people come here to eat fast food every day, so the fast food restaurant has prepared a lot of ingredients, otherwise, the restaurant would have been emptied in the half hour just now. Are you full? Su Zaicheng looked at the little Loli in disbelief with his dry mouth, and asked with difficulty. No. Not full. Little Lolita continued to stuff things into her mouth as she spoke. Seeing her like this, Su Zaicheng didn't want to interrupt her, so he could only helplessly watch her continue eating. Another half hour later. This store was completely emptied, and the wrapping paper was still piled up like a hill. If it hadn't been cleared several times, the wrapping paper alone would have buried little Loli's entire table and the few nearby. Although I want to continue to see how much this big stomach king little Loli can eat, but the ingredients are really gone, so the clerk had no choice but to tell Su Zaicheng about the situation. Are you full? Su Zaicheng took a deep breath and looked at little Lolita. Woo. Little Lolita patted her stomach, glanced at the surrounding crowd, shyly stuffed the last chicken leg into her mouth, and nodded reluctantly. I'm full. Damn. You're not full at all. Your mouth never stops.